Hello, and welcome to the Department of Deportation podcast, the DEPODcast. Don't forget to like and share this video and follow our channel. On this episode, we're going to be talking about Alex Padilla, a senator from California who just happened to crash out the Department of Homeland Security press conference right in the middle of Kristi Noem speaking, and he got tossed out of it like a sack of potatoes. He then cried about it a lot, and we saw that Noem actually met with him afterwards. Was this actually criminal of him? Who knows? Let's take a look.
Specifically to the rioters and to the politicians in Los Angeles.
Half a dozen violent criminals that you're rotating on your.
I also want to talk about specifically
Senator Alex Padilla. I have questions for the secretary, because the fact of the matter is a half a dozen violent criminals that you're rotating on your heads off.
How many of our ICE agents have been doxxed for doing their duty, how they have been targeted.
So, as you can see from those clips, he goes barging in and goes running right at the podium where Kristi Noem was speaking, gets stopped by security, gets into a shoving match with him, and eventually gets pushed out into his side room and tackled and handcuffed. That's not a behavior of a sitting U.S. senator, but that's what happened. It is ironic to note that if anybody tries to interrupt Alex Padilla when he's speaking on the floor of the Senate, that they will be physically tossed out and manhandled and arrested, just like happened here. Man, I can watch this guy get shoved around and handcuffed and thrown to the ground all day long from a lot of different angles. I think it's hilarious that he thinks he's above the law, which, by the way, let's take a look at what he thinks about people being above the law. Well, yep, you guessed it. He was posting "no one's above the law" over and over again. Typical Dem leftists that post that, and then they themselves are disobeying lots of laws. After the incident, when she was taking questions from some adversarial press, Kristi was asked about this.
Oh, you know what? I don't even know the senator. He did not request a meeting with me or to speak with me. So when I leave here, I'll have a conversation with him and visit and find out really what his concerns were. I think everybody in America would agree that that wasn't appropriate. That if you wanted to have a civil discussion, especially as a leader, a public official, that you would reach out and try to have a conversation. For instance, I have left voicemails for Governor Newsom wanting to have a conversation. Has he returned them? No, he hasn't. I know that the White House has reached out and had conversations with Mayor Bass as well. And so that's what you do to try to start these conversations and ask for partnerships. Unfortunately, we haven't met that in this area. I'll visit with the senator and find out really what his concerns are and what we can do.
Let's take a look at Alex Padilla at a press conference after this happened.
You were murdered. Okay, you obviously weren't murdered because you're alive and you're basically intact. You weren't murdered, buddy.
Haha, whoops, my bad. Here's the right clip.
So I came to the press conference to hear what she had to say, to see if I could learn any new additional information. And at one point, I had a question. And let me emphasize, just as we've emphasized the right for people to peacefully protest and to stand up for their First Amendment rights, for our fundamental rights. I was there peacefully. At one point, I had a question. And so I began to ask a question. I was almost immediately forcibly removed from the room. I was forced to the ground, and I was handcuffed. I was not arrested. I was not detained.
It is weird that in his retelling of the story, he does not happen to mention that he pushed his way in and was running, trying to go towards the podium, and he was yelling, and nobody knew who he was, and he wasn't wearing his security badges. Despite that, we find out that he actually did get to meet with Kristi Noem for about 15 minutes. Check out what Noem had to say after the entire event was done.
I had a conversation with the senator after this. We sat down for 10 to 15 minutes and talked about the fact that nobody knew who he was. He didn't say who he was, that until he was already had been lunging forward and people were trying to detain him for quite a period of time. And that this, we're leaders, we're public servants. And if he had requested a meeting, I would have loved to have sat down and had a conversation with him. That coming into a press conference like this is political theater. It's wrong and it does a disservice to this country and the people who live here. So we sat sat down, had a conversation. We probably disagree on 90% of the topics, but we agreed to exchange phone numbers. We'll continue to talk and share information, and I think that's the way it should be in this country. I wish he would have acted that way in the beginning instead of creating a scene like this.
So I said when I saw this happening live on X, and just like Christy said here, he could have just gone and had his own press conference and avoided all this and figured it out ahead of time. Probably even had his own conference room. So will this dude ever see some charges from this? I think it's a little tiny percentage chance that he actually sees any from this. There doesn't seem to be any emphasis from this in the Department of Justice employee postings on social media afterwards. So I'm going to have to go with, I don't think this is going to end up being a thing, other than we all get to laugh at him for eternity, for getting shoved around by those little tiny dudes who are much smaller than him, which is hilarious. Don't forget to like and share this video and follow our channel.